We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.
Depending on wherever you are, good morning, good afternoon, perhaps good evening if you're listening live in jolly old England or parts of Europe, as it were. This is Robert Phoenix, and this is the Friday portion of Free Association Radio, also known as the Friday FARcast. It's 2 hours of Q&A, talk time, spiked coffee for the intelligentsia of the now age, and you're part of it. And today we're going to have a really packed show, wall-to-wall information and scintillating conversation. I'm going to be joined by Sarah Nash, who is with me here on the first Friday of every month. Edward Longshanks had first night. I have first Friday, and it's with Sarah Nash, and she'll be with me in just a few minutes. Following her, I'm going to have Randi Didie on. A lot of you might know Randi through the chat room. Randi is an Orgone artist, practitioner, and healer, and we're going to spend about 20 or 30 minutes finding out about her work and more about Orgone. That will be right after Sarah, and then following Randi, the return of Tom Paladino, and an update on my scalar energy healing experience with Tom. And if you have any burning questions about scalar energy, you'll be able to ask them to Tom directly via a little call-in session that we'll have after my check-in and brief recap of what I've been experiencing with Orgone. So that's today's show. 2 hours worth of information, enlightenment, entertainment, and all-around conviviality in what appears to be fairly dark times. However, today's a good day for me. Do you want to know why? I left my sunglasses at a restaurant yesterday, and I went back there today, and I got them. How cool is that? Sometimes it's the little things in life that really matter. And even though they're cheap sunglasses, I didn't want to buy another pair of cheap sunglasses, and they're actually pretty good for cheap sunglasses. So that has set the tone for my day. Venus is in the 6th house in my chart. Mars is in the 6th house in my chart, and I've been quite busy. I've got a new post up on the website. If you haven't seen it, it's on Jason Collins, Tim Tebow, and a lot of other stuff. I urge you to check it out. It's kind of a fun read. It's a lot of tongue-in-cheek, and also some pretty interesting astrology, which I'll probably save for next week's show. All right, let me waste no more time and bring on our very special Friday guest, the one, the only, Sarah Nash.
Hey.
Hi, Sarah.
Hey.
Can
you hear me?
Are you doing rerun from What's Happening Now?
No, I don't even know what that is.
Oh, really? Oh, what's happening now is a great. Was one of my favorite TV shows in the 70s. When I was a kid, like in high school, I was really into black TV shows. And Rerun was he was part of a group called the Lockers, and the Lockers were Tony Basil's dance troupe. Anyway, he became an actor, and it was he played a character called Rerun. And his famous line was, "Hey, hey, hey."
Oh, yeah, okay. I remember. Well, I'm also thinking of Fat Albert. I love that show. Oh, my God. I didn't get to watch a lot of television when I was growing up, though. I mean, basically, I learned my sense of humor from the BBC. My mother let me watch PBS and BBC, and she didn't realize what she was turning me on to. So I grew up with Monty Python and Benny Hill.
Did you grow up with Caligula?
Oh yeah.
Didn't they have like a long running series on PBS about Caligula?
Yeah, and it was a massive orgy.
Right.
And then there was Upstairs, Downstairs.
Upstairs, Downstairs, Inside, Outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Upstairs, Downstairs was an Ivory Merchant production, and then Ivory Merchant branched off into all those films back in the 80s. So how's our rock star who's been hanging out with Geeoge Noory and Jay Widener in Boulder, Colorado? What was that like for you?
It was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal, and I got to give a plug for my incredible PR person, Mary Elizabeth Berry of Berry Inc. This is advertising.
You're here.
But, yeah, she rocks the Casbah, man. She's an amazing individual. She jumps to it. You want her by your side when you're doing a gig because, she snaps to it. She's there. She's on. Yeah, love that woman. Love her. Love her.
She's a supernova and a Doberman in stiletto heels.
Yeah, she's the cosmic pimp.
Well, okay.
I'm the cosmic hooker, and she's the cosmic pimp. And, man, whenever I start getting really snippy or something,
right.
I'm reminded that, she's got my best interests at heart. And so, yeah, she's a supernova. She really is. But
yeah.
With regard to the situation there at Geeoge Studios, what a phenomenal place, man. If I had to go back into mainstream office work, I would be pounding on their door because their studios, their offices, supremely high vibration. They have these giant crystals everywhere, all over the place. Huge labyrinths in the back.
Right.
Yeah, and the people there, the crew, I've worked with a few camera crews.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, these guys, they were funny and yeah, the whole vibe there is just phenomenal. Hats off to Geeoge Studios, man. They got it going on. And not only that, people should understand that they can get a month free. God, it sounds like I'm doing a freaking commercial, but it's true. Go to Geeoge. You can get a month free. You can watch anything, download anything you want there. And then it's like I think it's like $10 a month for all their movies, all their shows. It's phenomenal. I don't know how they're staying in business, but I heard they just bought all of Universal Studios stuff, all of their old films, their entire archive.
How old? Because there's probably a cutoff date, right?
What's that?
Well, I think that's probably the newer Universal productions. That's a huge. If they're buying those titles, we're talking upwards of hundreds of millions of dollars. So they probably
there's got to be a cutoff date. Yeah, but Jay would probably know. Jay Widener.
Jay would definitely know.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And a lot of people don't know that you can actually get Geeoge on Roku. If you don't know what a Roku is, I urge you to find out. Roku is a little set-top box, and you can either plug it in directly to a computer, or you can run it off a wireless signal if you are not afraid of wireless signals. And Roku essentially lets you bypass cable TV, and it has a lot of channels that you can access, some of which are free. You can get Pandora on Roku, and you can a couple others. Cracked is a free movie channel. And then they have pay channels. You can get Netflix on Roku. You can get Hulu on Roku. You can download movies a la carte from Amazon. And you can get Gaiam TV on Roku. So, the media revolution is expanding, and people have more of a personal choice on what they want to view and how they want to view it than ever before, which is kind of cool. So all these people that are out of work now get to choose what they want to watch at a fairly affordable rate.
Yeah, I'm thinking about dumping my cable. I don't have time for television. People tell me about all these great shows and stuff, and I don't have the time. Who's got the time to watch television? I have to sit down and immerse myself for 8 hours, and then I'm good. Like if I get a show like Game of Thrones, oh my God, and Breaking Bad, and what True Blood, dear God.
Well, so some of those are the Netflix fix, right? You can go to Netflix or Hulu. They have.
Yeah, but you can't get them for streaming.
Yeah, you can. Well, you can't get Game of Thrones or True Blood because those are HBO properties.
Right, but you can get those on Amazon.
Yeah, you can, but you have to do it a la carte, though.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. Now, if you happen to have, okay, so check this out now. If you happen to be an HBO subscriber, you can get HBO streaming through Roku.
Yeah, and if you have HBO, you can have HBO Go, which is phenomenal.
It's the same thing, yeah.
Okay, this is boring. Let's talk about something else. Forget this. People don't want to know about this. Let's talk about, you know what, I want to talk about EMFs here real quickly, because when I was in Sedona, there was a lot of talk about that. There was a lot of talk about how the vortices there blocked a lot of EMFs, and I got to tell you, there's something weird going on out there besides that, because I had crappy cell phone connection. Wherever I went in Sedona, it just was not happening. It was terrible.
Right.
And my wireless signal for my laptop was relatively okay, but that was wired into the resort that we were staying at. We actually have a timeshare out there. Mm-hmm. I couldn't afford to buy property in Sedona, but I wanted to actually say that I had a Sedona zip code, so we checked into a phenomenal, awesome little place out by Bell Rock, which is one of my favorite vortices. Yeah, zero cell phone reception, real wonky stuff, super wonky stuff. And I have this feeling about EMFs. I don't think that we can avoid it, and I know this is going to be super controversial because, especially, I'm totally tuning in as soon as we're done here. But we are holographic images, and in my impression, we are energy. We are pure energy. The way the neutrinos are our bodies are made up. Everything is made up of neutrinos, but the way we need to get over this. We need to get over this fear of EMFs. We have to. They are everywhere. You cannot get away from them. You can't. So I think we need to embrace it and allow it to flow through us so it doesn't make us sick. So I envision myself as a major grid, mm-hmm. and I allow, it's like a radio wave. It's.
Well, I hear you, and I think that I was having a conversation with an email exchange with a client and friend yesterday, and we were talking about her health issues, and she lives in Florida, and we're trying to pin down what those could be, and I said to her, well, some of this is environmental, I'm sure, because you're living near the Gulf, and there's this blowback from core exit that I'm sure is everywhere there. And then I said to her that there's really no safe place. And if you look at California and the constant exposure California's had from Fukushima, going on almost 3 years now, by the way, it's intense. I know a lot of people in California that are sick. We're being bombarded constantly by chemtrails, barium, aluminum, and everything else that the chemtrail cocktail has in it. So there's really no safe place. And I think that to your point, I'm not advocating that, people, suntan next to cell phone towers, but
No.
I think that in order to transcend our condition, that we have to learn how to deal with all this stuff, and this is part of the big test. And I think EMF is part of it too.
Well, I do too, and speaking of television shows, remember Fringe? Remember Walter? He would sit there and he would eat. And I know he's just a fictional character in a fictional show, but the funny thing is that he would constantly eat junk food like Twizzlers and red licorice and stuff, and somebody was telling him, that's crazy. Why are you eating? Why are you filling your body with all this crap? And he said, if we don't start becoming accustomed to this crap, we will not survive. This is what we're going to be eating in the future. And the funny thing is that he's probably right, that there's going to be a great deal of chemicals in our food in the future simply because that's where we're moving towards. And I'm wondering if this organic craze now has something to do with disinformation. I mean, I'm not trying to diss good food. I love good food. I go to farmers market, but oh man, you got to wonder.
Well, okay, so look, the chemicals are here now. The genetically modified. So what's really interesting is they're moving the debate from genetically modified organisms to transgenic organisms. See, what people don't understand is that all genetically modified foods are pretty much transgenic, but the transgenic nomenclature has not been introduced into the vocabulary of what we're eating. And the definition of transgenics is basically taking a gene from one species that has nothing to do with anything else that you're consuming and introducing into that species. For instance, and this goes all the way back to the very first tomato that they genetically modified, where they put I believe it was an Atlantic cod gene inside the tomato. With
what?
Cod, the fish, cod.
Oh my God.
Well, so the reason they did that was because they wanted to make the tomato more resistant to cold. So they sat around, they stroked their beards, and they said, well, what's really resistant to cold? Well, how about those fish that are in the really cold portions of the Atlantic Ocean? Great idea. Let's get a gene from one of those fish and shoot it into a tomato. And so that's how we have these tomatoes now that can grow just about anywhere, under any condition, and they look great and they have absolutely no flavor. So transgenic or transgenic modification has been a part of GMOs.
Sounds a little fishy to me.
But now they're just bringing this into the conversation. And one of the big sort of taboos, right, or the sort of the conversation that's quite dark that goes on in the alternate research community is that there are human genes now being placed inside of vegetables.
Oh, well then, so we've got the island of Dr. Moreau there, somewhere out in the
well, absolutely.
Floating.
I mean, the island of Dr. Moreau is kind of a remix of Atlantis, right, where they have all these chimeras. And sure, I mean, that's where we're headed. The chimeras exist. They're doing chimeras all the time. Sometimes they're out in the open, sometimes they're 2-3 miles underneath the surface. But yeah, so now we're getting into a whole new dialogue about what modified food means, and it's kind of scary, to be honest with you. And I hear you. We have to adapt. We have to mutate on some level, but how much is too much? That's really that's the question.
Well, the interesting thing is I was out in my garden a couple of days ago looking at some of the plants I have, and, there's this one plant that's very hardy, and it looks like, I think they call it a horsetail, and it hasn't changed its design in millions of years. I mean, this is the plant that was around when dinosaurs roamed the earth, and it hasn't changed because it doesn't need to. So, I'm looking at we can look at it two different ways. We can look at the travesty of not having polar bears anymore, and how flipping heartbreaking that is. Or we can look at it as the Earth evolving. I mean, at some point we're going to have to say, okay, this really sucks, but what's happening next? Because there is evolution involved. There is some sort of evolution that will take place, and I'm not trying to say that global warming doesn't exist, and I'm not trying to say that it isn't our fault and there isn't anything that we can do about it. What I'm saying is that in order to thrive and survive, we have to learn to adapt and stop living in fear. Fear is the ass kicker, okay? Fear is F-E-A-R, false evidence appearing real. If we stop moving through our worlds with so much fear, oh my God, this is going to get me, oh my God, that's going to get me, we're all going to die. Everything, the thing is, if you eat too many carrots, you're going to die. If you eat too much meat, you're going to die. If you're going to, if you breathe too much, you're going to die. Eventually we're going to die. It's do we get to choose the quality of our death? And I think that's what we're really coming down to with the chemtrails and the EMFs and the fact that our world is going to hell in a handbasket. Maybe we should just stop saying, oh, it's so horrible, it's so horrible, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, and we're just running, Maybe we just all just sort of went, okay, how do we get along in this world?
So I guess what you're saying is if you're going to be raped, you may as well just turn over and like it, right? I mean,
oh, I just love how you turn all that around without any Vaseline or a thank you. If you want to call it rape, call it rape.
I understand what you're saying.
You can't rape the willing, though, and we're still here, breathing in and out.
I understand what you're saying, and I think that there is some truth to what you're saying. However, I also think that part of the human experience is to define itself against its limitations. And without that, I don't think that we have any kind of metric to understand where we are in the universe. That's my philosophy. And so what we're dealing with is a system that has an increasing amount of limitations that are being put on us, whether they're environmental or whether they're legal or whether they're philosophical or whether they're moral. And I don't have a problem with limitations because it's part of the agreement here. But when you have too many limitations, then what happens is that it actually, I think, suffocates the human spirit. And I guess my question to you is, how much is too much?
Well, and therein, that's what it's really about. But I am against fear mongering. We have to approach this with consciousness and with instead of anger and rage. Although, I got to say, getting angry about chemtrails is very important. So, there's a dichotomy there. It's a paradox. If it's a paradox, it must be true. Yeah, we do need to get angry about that stuff. But I'm saying that if we approach a lot of this, especially EMFs, and I cannot wait to hear the rest of this show, but what can we do besides sitting huddled in our rooms covered with aluminum foil and surrounding ourselves? I mean, there has to be some sort of consciousness approach that we can take with this, and I think Sedona is an excellent example of that, because I got to tell you, man, I've been going there for 30 years, and it's phenomenal out there. There's something really, really amazing about being in a place of positive light and the vortices that are out there. I felt safe. I felt protected.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe we should just all move to Sedona then.
No, let's do it. Why not? No, there has to be a way that we can live in the world but not be of the world.
Well, yeah. My motto at the end of the show is use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open to what's possible. I mean, to me, that's kind of how I've, crafted my blog and crafted my radio show and even my interactions with people, it's like, yeah, I want to be aware, but I don't want to be so aware that the awareness is paralytic.
Exactly.
And
that's
what
what's
I'm aware
happening
of,
to so many people.
And what I'm aware of, I want to be able to control to the best of my ability. And what I can't control, then I have to let go and let God. I mean, that's what it's about for me.
Well, God helps those who help themselves, though. I mean, and I'm not, okay, yeah, I am being the devil's advocate here, but I just want people to sit up and take notice and not sit in fear. Yes, all of this stuff does exist. There's no doubt in my mind that all of this exists. But what can we do individually and collectively so that, A, we can learn to adapt in a way that is beneficial? I don't care about myself. I care about my grandchildren. I have two beautiful grandchildren, one brand new, my little beautiful Haley Marie, born on April 15th. And I want her world to not be filled with fear and pain. I want it to be a beautiful place, and that means that I've got to do something to make that happen. It's up to us to create this pathway to be the pioneers for the millennials.
Okay. Well, I've got a 9-year-old kid. I mean, I'm all about the preservation of the next generation, right? So, yeah, you do what you can. Each of us has our own toolkit, and we have our own community that we hopefully can do that with, and to the best of our abilities. And what it looks like for me may not look like it for you, or vice versa. So, I mean, that's really I think, Sarah, that's really the where the rubber hits the road in the big picture, is that we live in a place where it has amazing resources, both natural and also social resources. There's a lot of amazing people that live here. The problem is that we're so diverse, and that could be a strength, but we're also so diverse that we can't agree on anything. And now what we have is this kind of oligarchic, plutocratic government now that is agreeing on everything for us, and that's a huge challenge. So,
well, I mean, if you take something like what you said, well, let's just all move to Sedona. Well, we can't do that, can we, Robert? But what we can do is find out what they are doing. If it's just a positive vibration, for Christ's sake, if that's all that it takes, then we need to raise our awareness. Maybe it is just that simple. I don't know. But there's something going on out there that we need to learn how to adapt and bring into, places like Denver, places like Los Angeles, places, saying, oh, let's just all move to Sedona. Well, why don't we all just move to Findhorn, too? I mean, that's not the answer, and the answer isn't in sarcasm. The answer is in finding out what is happening there that is causing it to work. I mean, that's it. How do you discover popcorn? Well, some dude tripped over and all the corn fell in the fire. Yeah. Well, let's find out where this corn is falling into the fire and see how, is it being in the desert? Is it being in elevated areas in the desert? I mean, what's going on in Taos? I mean, let's find out. Is it the mothership above that's protecting? If so, let's ask them to, protect the earth. So, I mean, there's lots of different ways that we can approach this, but approaching it with fear, I think that's my number one message. That's it. We cannot approach it with fear. We need to, like Don Miguel Ruiz said, listen but be skeptical.
Well, I'm afraid our time is up.
No, I'm sure a lot of people are going, shut her up.
No. Look, again, I just, use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open what's possible. That's my mantra. And do your best. And the rest you can't do your best. And what you can't do or have any control over, then you have to let go and surrender. Right? I mean, to me, that's what it's about. You can only control what you can control. You can stay open to possibility. You can use your laser-like perception to say bullshit and then choose something different and then invoke a higher power when you don't think you can go any further. I don't know if it's more complicated than that. And if you hook up with a bunch of people along the way that have a similar heart and mind, then you're onto something. So
amen.
That's my 2 cents.
And you need to keep going out there, and you need to keep preaching the truth, brother.
You know,
Love
look,
your show.
the truth really is, to me, right now at 12:30 on the 3rd of May, the truth is the people that hang out in my chat room. The truth is people that are awakening and opening their hearts and opening their eyes and opening their minds, because that's where we need to be. That's the truth. The big truth, the big T, I don't know. That's kind of a moving target sometimes. One day it's actors, the next day it's something else, the next day it's kids from Chechnya. Before there was a guy from Afghanistan or Pakistan. Before that it was a guy in dialysis in a cave. I mean, the truth is very elusive on that level. But what is true and what is real are the dialogue that you and I are having, that we share right now and in our own communities, and hopefully we can have more of that.
Right on. Preach it. All right. I'm out of here. I want to listen to the rest of the show. So.
Love you. Are you there?
I am. I'm waiting for you to say goodbye.
I love you. How's that? That's better than goodbye.
All right. I'll see you next month.
Bye, Sarah. Sarah Nash, the Cosmic Cooker. There she goes. Off into the psychic wilderness, doing her thing. Catch her on Gaiam TV. All right, so here we go. I was going to ask her what she's doing next. I should have. You can find her at cosmictriage.com. There's that link on my website. I'm sorry, not on the website, but on the show page. And what else? Facebook. You can find her on Facebook too. Okay, so apparently today's show is about solutions. It's about solutions to the challenges and the problems we have living in the 21st century. In many ways, a post-apocalyptic world. Maybe the world's ended and we don't really know. And this is the after party. And this is where we are right now. The deconstruction of the planet, the after party, the post-millennial experience. So in order to stay alive, stay healthy, to raise your kids so they can play soccer or baseball or tiddlywinks or Dungeons and Dragons or Minecraft or whatever it is, we need tools to thrive and stay alive, right? We're survivors. Remember, we for a while we lived in caves. We lived in caves and we drew paintings on walls while the world was going through massive changes. And we climbed out of those caves and we started what we now call civilization. We are tough. We're like algae. We're like mold. They can't get rid of us. They spray billions of gallons of chemtrails into the sky, and they've been doing it since 1997, and guess what? We're still here. Cancer is rampant. Cancer is a virus that they've unleashed on this planet, and guess what? We're still here. They do everything in their power to turn us against one another, race against race, sex against sex, and we're still here. We're a lot tougher than we think or know. We're a lot more resilient. And I know we're being pushed to the brink right now. People are losing it. Hell, I lost it last Sunday. I'm not afraid to admit it or share it. I lost it. But I pulled it back together again. Lose it a little bit at a time. Don't just lose it all at once. You'll be okay. But we're tough. We're resilient. We're strong. We're flexible. And Sarah's right. We are adaptable. We can adapt. I love our 30 minutes. I think it's great, great, great. Kind of to and fro, back and forth, feisty dialogue. So let's find out what we can do for ourselves. How do we stay alive? How do we thrive? Let's bring on our next guest, Randi Didie, all the way from the Pacific Northwest. It must be Pacific Northwest Day because that's where Sarah was calling from. Here she is, Orgone artist, exemplar, Randi Didie.
Hello.
Hi, Randi.
How do you follow something like that? That was a great interview you guys had.
Oh, I'm not sure if it was an interview. It was kind of like, I don't know, theosophical mud wrestling on the air. I don't know, but it was good. You know.
Great band.
Yeah, no, Sarah's great. She's super bright, and She has some interesting ideas, and I'm always happy to have her first Friday. How are you, Randi?
I'm great. I'm wonderful. You guys are on to the right stuff. We need to realize that anger and fear does play a role in awakening the sheeple, and you're doing your part in doing that. So
it's interesting, you know, when I first started my blog and then the radio show, I was just coming out of a divorce, and I was angry. You know, I was angry about a lot of things, and part of it was the social condition that existed outside and also inside of my marriage. And I think a lot of my early writing and some of the early shows were kind of based on that. And, you know, 4 or 5 years out now, I'm not really that person anymore. I still get outraged over certain things, but I'm also much more interested in the long haul and finding solutions and being more resonant. And that's why you're on the show today. Let's talk about some Orgone.
great. Well, I used to be a play it safe, or a creature of commonplace, and a slave to the ordinary as well. I have an accounting background, so that is my left brain, and making the Orgone and the art is kind of balancing it out with my right brain.
Yeah. So you live up in Washington State, is that
Yes.
right? And do you live like in the Olympic Peninsula?
I live in the Olympia area, 30 miles from the capital.
Okay, I used to live in Olympia, so I lived there for 2 years, and I loved it. I had a great time.
It's great.
Yeah, really, that's God's country up there. You get the
Rhododendrons are blooming, the lilacs are blooming, everything smells wonderful. It's a great time of year.
It is really great. So
That's why we moved here, is because of the beauty. We wanted a higher standard of living for our young family when we first moved here. We've been here almost 20 years.
wow.
And I live next to a lake, which in my opinion is a natural source of Orgone energy. It's always been beautiful here with rainbows in the sky and perfect growing conditions for my gardening. But I always have noticed the chemtrails in the sky from the early 90s or the mid-90s. And I wanted to know, what could I do to mitigate that? I mean, I'm growing food out here. I don't want it dusted with barium and all the chemicals. And so I found out about chem busting, did the research, bought my own for a few years before I started making it. I saw that it really works. Before your eyes, you will see white in the sky, a trail of white that just dissipates from having the Orgone below it.
So there are some people that are not familiar with the term chem busting, and there are some people that aren't really that familiar with Orgone. Can you give people like about maybe a 2-3 minute synopsis on Orgone, and then let's jump into chem busters, because I've got some questions about that for you.
Orgone is a natural presence of good energy. The earth has it from, I don't know if it's due with water, but it has to do with crystals and the amount of metals present in the earth that create this matrix of blue energy. It was discovered by Wilhelm Reich. And so when you take it to the next level, you can use the crystals in a matrix of resin and make Orgone energy that permeates the air. And if you put it in pipes, metal pipes go up into the air, and they can clear the chemtrails right out of the sky. If you're not using big pipes and you just have a piece of Orgone art in your home, it will create balance and harmony within your atmosphere. And it's the piezoelectricity from the crystals inside. So I've always been into crystal therapy and gems, and had quartz or hematite always in my jewelry.
When you make a chem buster, are you using copper pipes?
Copper pipes, 10-foot copper pipes with a big old quartz crystal in it, suspended in a resin matrix. Yeah.
So you just get a bucket, and then you mix the resin with crystals and copper, and then you just sink your pipes into that? Is that what you do?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a lot of meditation in programming the crystals at first, but it's the matrix itself that when you put it out into the natural environment, it's amplified through those copper pipes. It goes right up into the sky, and if you have chemtrails, you'll see them clear, just dissipate right before your eyes.
That's interesting. I first read about them on Ken Adachi's site, educateyourself.org, and was really interested in building a chembuster. And I've only seen one in person, and that was in a backyard here in Austin. And I asked the guy if it worked, and he said, well, he wasn't really sure, that somebody had given it to him. And quite frankly, it didn't look all that great. How much does aesthetics play in creating a piece of orgone, whether it's a chembuster or a piece of orgone that you would have in your home?
Well, the buster itself isn't that aesthetic looking with a 10-foot pipe sticking up in the air. You can make a swirly pattern to make it more aesthetic looking, but people kind of put it off to the side. It's not that great looking, but it works, in my opinion. The ones in my homes are more aesthetically pleasing. They are full of gems and different shapes that I mold, such as pyramids or cones, and they have pretty colors inside of them, and they really give an ambiance to your surroundings and a healing presence in your domain.
So I've also heard that when you have a chembuster, what you don't want to do is you don't want to touch it. You just want to leave it alone. Is that right?
Yes, it's a freestanding thing that stands off to the side.
Because it's also, as it's giving off positive organic energy, it's also accumulating negative organic energy. I've heard that if you touch them, you'll actually get sick. Is that true?
If you wrap the crystals in your copper wiring, there is a way to make the energy go in or out, but it's such a large piece with that 10-foot pipe. It's clearing the air both up and down. So yeah, I would leave it alone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get sick.
Have you ever worked with charging orgone? Like, have you ever plugged anything into a piece of orgone, like an electrical current or magnets or anything like that?
I've seen that available in my research. I don't use it. I don't want to mess with electricity. This, to me, is cleaning the air, and I'm not plugging into anything.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the types of crystals that you like to use or you found to be effective with some of your pieces?
Mainly I use the Lemurian seed crystals. You can find them. They're expensive, but they're already charged. They're highly developed crystals. Mm-hmm. And so when I make a grid, I usually clean, clear, and program my crystals before I put them in a matrix. And that usually involves in making a mandala out of my crystals during a meditation. And then, I use them right away in creating my orgone.
Mm-hmm. I went to your online shop, which, by the way, there's a link to on my show page. If you want to check out some of Randi's goodies, you can go to that link. I went to your online shop and I found I grabbed a picture that you have of these orgone hearts, which I thought were really cool. Talk about those. What are those about?
Those are like a personal size orgone that you can put in your personal space, like next to you on a phone, like this type of phone that I'm using is a cordless phone, and they still give off negative energies. So I would use it by my wireless router or my wireless phone or my laptop computer just to have it clean any energies around me.
Mm-hmm. What about orgone in water? Have you ever played with, using orgone to purify water or putting it on top, like a water jug? What's that like?
I have flat pieces of orgone, like a star or a flat plate, and I will charge my water before I drink it or just use it as a coaster and have my water sit on it. Or I will charge up my food before I eat it, especially if I think that it's been microwaved. But the orgone itself has a healing benefit. So anything in my house I feel is healing just from the amount of orgone that I have in here.
Mm-hmm. That's actually a really interesting idea, orgone coasters. Do you make those too?
Yes.
That's a pretty cool idea. I like that. What about orgone in the garden? Have you seen any effects of orgone with gardening and planting vegetables, fruits, flowers, etc.?
I don't think it's just my green thumb that makes the plants in my garden grow so well. I have orgone placed in my greenhouse or on my deck. And, you know, it could be my green thumb, but I think the orgone energy is definitely beneficial.
Yeah.
And I gift orgone to water like lakes, or I gift orgone to cell towers. I'll go bury an orgone piece in a cell tower location, or throw it in the lake when we're on a canoe ride, or just innocuous places that need it.
Right. Yeah. The Crofts have used orgone to plant near cell towers, and
yes.
Yeah, it's probably a pretty good idea. We need to make as much as we can, you know, transmutate the EMFs. We can also like step them down a little bit too to make it a lot easier.
Yes, I'm not into doing this for, you know, making the money. I'm into doing this for cleaning the skies, and like you guys were talking earlier, I've got a grandchild on the way, you know. I want to see this world cleaner.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. What about, I was going to ask you a question. It was, what about, do you do any teaching with orgone? Do you like have any classes or seminars that you hold that kind of, you know, give people the insight to it?
I'm starting to. I mean, you can tell someone about why organic or why chemtrail busting. They might know some of that, but rarely will you find someone who even knows about orgone and orgone energy. So this radio show alone is getting it out there.
Yeah.
And if people want to learn about it, I could talk till the cows come home.
I've heard that when people put the chem busters out, that they will get visits from black helicopters. Have you ever had any black helicopters?
Yes, I can attest to that. And it's not something I'll bring up, but since you brought it up, I've seen the black helicopters, and I thought, well, is it because I have all these orgone pieces? Is it because I was just making orgone in my shop? Or is it because I live next to Fort Lewis? There is a base over here, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Speculation.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I mean, if I'll bet you if there was some kind of a spectrometer, you know, that kind of a military-grade spectrometer that they could actually see organic fields emanating from certain areas. I would have no doubt about that.
Well, it's funny you bring that up. Is Harry Oldfield, who is an inventor in England, has this filter that you can put in front of your camera, and you can actually see fields emanating from orgone or crystals. And so I've played with a little bit of photography on that, and there is an energy that's visible through this filter that you can see, energy emitting from orgone or from crystals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if the military want to have some spectrometer out there, they might be seeing my orgone energy coming from my area, because there are black helicopters up there looking around.
Yeah, no doubt. What about UFOs? I remember reading that Wilhelm Reich and his son, when they were playing with their cloud buster, they were actually disabling some UFOs. Have you attracted any UFOs with your orgone?
I have not, no, but I know they're out there. I believe they're out there, and they're having a citizens' hearing this week in Washington, D.C., so disclosure is happening.
So let's talk a little bit about crystals. You seem to have some knowledge about crystals. Besides the Lemurian crystal seeds, what else do you like to work with, maybe outside of the orgone? What are some of the crystals you're into?
Well, I got amethyst when I was very young, at like 10 or 11. I've been wearing amethyst. It's my birthstone, and I feel the healing energy coming from it. So maybe I was already led to the crystal energy at a young age, that I've always had it on me.
Mm-hmm. So amethyst is a good one.
Yes, hematite. Hematite is like a little metallic-looking thing that also is heavy and dense and absorbs negativity.
Hematite is quite good for grounding. I used to have a hematite heart that I would rub with my thumb and my index finger, and felt like that was actually pretty therapeutic. I had calcite. A long time ago, I had this girlfriend she wasn't an official witch, but she was a witch, and she was hanging out with a bunch of other women who were also unofficial witches. I think it was like the kind of the reincarnation of a coven from another time. And one night they were playing with these crystals, and they created like this crystal grid around my head, and I was laying in it. And then this massive piece of calcite that was right at my crown chakra, and it felt like somebody was hitting my crown chakra with a tuning fork with that calcite. Have you ever worked with calcite much?
I have some pieces of calcite. They complement the other clearer stones that I put around them. But I've only put quartz on my crown chakra. I haven't put any others. I haven't experimented with other stones. I like the clarity of the quartz when it's on any of my chakra systems.
Yeah.
But I'm always sleeping with my amethyst, or if I have rose quartz is healing too. I just think they're all healing in some way, shape, or form, and whatever I'm grabbing at the time must be what I need at the time. A lot of it is intuition, and I have a great deal of it out there, so I just grab what I feel I need.
One of these days, I have a fantasy. One of these days, I'm going to build a copper tube pyramid that will sit around my bed with crystals inside of it and little orgone connectors. That's what I want to sleep in. Have you ever thought about something like that?
Oh, yeah, I see that on my Facebook all the time. There's people out there actually making those, and I've seen those around since the 70s. The tubular pyramids, the copper pyramids, can only be added when you put the orgone energy in there. It's amplifying. So, yeah, there's some really nice stuff going out there.
Yeah, yeah. So if people want to find out, obviously there's the link on the show page, but if people want to find out more about your orgone pieces, what you do, and more about orgone in general, how would they get a hold of you?
Oh, you could probably reach me through that link. It has my email address linked to it, and Facebook. Mm-hmm. And the chat rooms, believe it or not, I have gained so much connection through your chat rooms, and there's an energy there, and we listen, and we bond, and we process what you're saying, and we're playing together. So we've learned a lot in your chat room. There's a lot of bonding.
I put orgone in that chat room, by the way.
Yes.
I place it on all four corners of that chat room.
Yes.
So, well, no, it's cool. I mean, you're right. I mean, the chat room is pretty. It's pretty. You know, you think of something really just kind of mundane like a chat room, but like magic happens in there, and there's some amazing people that hang out in there. So, go to the chat room. You can meet Randi in the chat room, or you can go to the link on my show page, which is her website where she sells her orgone. What about some YouTube videos? You're going to put some YouTube videos together and give people some lessons?
I'll link them up to your site.
You have them already? No,
but I have camera and we'll travel.
All right. Well, good. All right. Anything else you want to share with the World Wide Web, Randi?
I think that people need to start waking up and taking control of their own personal situations, and orgone will amplify all those dreams and lofty ideals that you have. So.
All right. Well, there you go. Randi, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Robert.
We'll have you back on somewhere down the line when you have your next breakthrough in orgone experimentation and research and development. How's that sound?
Awesome.
All right. Take good care, Randi.
Thanks. You too. Bye.
Bye-bye. That's all the way from the Pacific Northwest, Randi Didie. She's our resident orgone artist and practitioner par excellence. It is 12:54 here in South Central Texas. This is Robert Phoenix. You are listening to the Friday FARcast. In a few minutes, I'm going to bring Tom Paladino back onto the program, and we're going to talk scalar healing energy and yet another attempt to augment your experience as a spiritual being having a human experience here in the 21st century post-millennial Earth. This is the Friday FARcast. I'll be back in, let's see what I want to play here. How about, should I play a little John Trudell? Let me play a little John Trudell. So this is 4 minutes and 3 seconds John Trudell on the wonders of hemp and THC grass fire.
In between the blues, there are good days and bad days, with everything and nothing to lose. While the setting sun never sits, and the night has no limits. The void between freedom and free, dealing with the unnatural reality. A need to see, a need to be. Grass fire, my DNA needs THC.
Grass fire in a world that yearns. That's the way this fire burns, like a grass fire.
In the unnatural society, been trying to maintain, while the sane appear to be clearly insane, with no way to explain. Outlasting the great lie, a sparking spark does my mind. Grass fire, pulling the sky, breathing in sativa's design.
That was John Trudell, Grass Fire, and John is making a comeback on the musical scene, and he's also doing great work on the hemp front, and we're seeing some action take place in Kentucky on the hemp front as well, getting closer towards some form of legalization, and it's about freaking time. That's a nice solution as well. Can we live in a world with hemp-produced products, with Orgone, with all the wonderful things that we can use to augment our reality positively? In a few moments, we're going to bring on Tom Paladino to talk about another potential technology that can be quite helpful towards that end. But I just wanted to share with you that I had a brief little exchange with Sarah Nash, and she's going to be teaching, not teaching, she's going to be having a seminar, a conference actually, with the White Light Express in August in Port Townsend. If you've never been to Port Townsend, I highly recommend it. Going to Port Townsend alone is worth the trip. It is an amazing place. It's right near the Olympic rainforest. There are hot springs up in that rainforest you can hike to. You're on the Puget Sound. There's great food there. So just getting to Port Townsend alone is worth the trip. And then Sarah's going to have her White Light Express conference, and that's August 16th, 17th, and 18th. And Geeoge Noory will be there as part of the conference as well. So who knows? Maybe I might even show up. You never know. So August 16th, 17th, and 18th, you can find out more about that on cosmichooker.com or cosmictriage.com, which is her website. Okay, let's bring Tom Paladino back onto the show here. We had him on about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I was his guinea pig. I was the recipient of his scalar healing technology, and we'll talk about that. Tom's going to talk a little bit more about scalar, and I'm going to open the phone lines if you have any questions for Tom about scalar healing and what it's all about. I urge you to call in, because now's a really good time to ask them. All right, let's get him on the show. Here he is from selfhealgo.com, Tom Paladino. Hello, Tom.
Good afternoon. Hi, Robert. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you too, sir. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Very well. Thanks so much. And yourself?
I'm good. I'm going to just kind of jump right into this. Since I've been on your program, I'm going to tell you, and everybody else out there, I have had an abundance of energy. Now, I don't know if this is a subliminal thing, or I'm not sure if the program is actually working, but I have an abundance of energy, so I'm actually really good. I'm getting lots of work done. Yes, I get tired. Yes, I have to take naps and all that stuff, but over the last 2 to 3 weeks, I've definitely noticed a shift in kind of what's available to me. Do other people talk about this at all?
Typically, that's the typical reaction. After a week or two, people feel an increase of energy. Their spirits usually are uplifted, and they usually need less sleep. That doesn't mean that they're not sleeping. It's an indication that the scalar energy is energizing their body to the extent that, yes, they feel better, and as you said, they have an abundance of energy.
So let's use this to sort of jump into scalar energy in general. One of the things that we talked about on the last time you were on the show was kind of the basic foundation of scalar energy. And some of the comments and questions I got from people were that they wanted to learn more, they wanted to know more, and they wanted to understand not necessarily how you do what you do, but what how does scalar energy actually come about?
Okay, I'll explain in detail, if you wish, as to how I create scalar energy. Let me first provide this backdrop. Much of my research really dovetails from what great men have done in the past. Scientists such as Nikola Tesla, a scientist who's not well known by the name of Galen Hieronymus, and a few other pioneers in this field of scalar energy. So essentially, I give tribute to them. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. In practice, I have a scalar energy instrument. And what I've been able to achieve is I am able to transform electricity into scalar energy and vice versa. I am able to take electricity from any household current and change that and transform that into scalar energy. And in practice, I do that by way of a series of vacuum tubes and Tesla coils.
Okay.
I have found that by taking a pulsed DC electrical current, then I can set the stage, I can set the necessary atmosphere to introduce that pulsation into a Tesla coil.
Mm-hmm.
And in so doing, with the proper geometry, and it's really boils down to proportion and ratio, from that point forward, a standing columnar wave can be achieved. A scalar energy field can be achieved in a Tesla coil. So essentially what I have, Robert, is a local scalar environment. And with that, I then introduce a photograph of a person into that scalar environment. And therefore, I'm afforded the ability to send that scalar energy to a person by way of their photograph.
Mm-hmm.
So in a nutshell, that's how I work with scalar energy.
How did you get into this, Tom? What led you to this?
I would say God prompted me. I would say this was a divine prompting. I knew that there was a great potential in scalar energy. I had been studying throughout my collegiate career, and I was looking for a different way of approaching disease, infection, and subsequently to generate power. I knew that there was another way besides that of the electromagnetic spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, I just took years to develop this technique. It has come to fruition in the past year, and I have been quite successful.
Mm-hmm. So do you have a background in engineering or medicine or nutrition, or where does your training come from?
It's a broad study. Throughout my life, I've studied physics, religion, the various natural sciences,
mm-hmm.
and I've also been able to, I would say, pick up on what great men like Tesla have put forth. You know, a lot of people could read a book on Nikola Tesla, but it really boils down to how you interpret and how you can penetrate the mystery. So with that, much of my work really is centered upon what Nikola Tesla and Galen Hieronymus have done throughout their lifetime. And picking up, and sadly, so much of it has been lost with the passing of these two great scientists, to glean from what they've done and then to repeat it, or at least to try to repeat what they have done.
Mm-hmm. Here's a slightly esoteric question. Have you ever felt like you've been led or guided by Tesla?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. I certainly believe in the afterlife. I'm a Christian. I believe that not only is God leading me, but I believe God places great people on this earth. Tesla was one of them, and his work is unfinished. And it really calls to mind that we have to continue on with what Tesla has introduced to mankind. It begs the question: we have to continue, and we must go on and do this man homage and other great scientists
mm-hmm.
by continuing on with their work.
Have you ever done any group work or teamed up with anybody else who is doing something similar or is also picking up the pieces on Tesla?
Yes, I've worked with a handful of people, and they've been quite helpful. They've helped me form my thinking of scalar energy, and to them I owe a great deal of tribute and respect. But sadly, Robert, it's a small group. I wish it were we're a worldwide undertaking. That's really one of my goals, to introduce scalar energy to the world and to make this common knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, since the last show, have you had any feedback from other people? Any more interest based on your time on the show?
Yes, thank you. I've had a renewed interest, I should say. Many people have approached me, and they have cited the radio show that we've did 2-3 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. They appreciated the dissemination of information that you and I are trying to broadcast and disseminate throughout the world. And little by little, it doesn't come in all at once, but little by little, the information is getting out there, and there is a groundswell of support.
Yeah, that's good. That's excellent. One of the things that people, if they go onto your website, selfhealgo.com, what they'll find you with a number of light bulbs, fluorescent bulbs, coil lights, things like that, and you're lighting them up with scalar energy. Is that right?
That's correct. With my scalar instrument, I have created a local scalar environment. And that environment, I have found, will illuminate a light bulb without electricity. I can hold a light bulb in my hand within that scalar environment, and I can achieve illumination. Now, that experiment is been tested and proven thousands of times. Mm-hmm. That is old hat, so to speak. I'm endeavoring this summer to continue my research to light up a light bulb by way of a photograph thousands of miles away. In other words, if I can light up a light bulb immediately within my laboratory, I want to do better, and the next step is to transmit that energy, that relatively free and safe energy, across the country, simply by way of a photograph of another light bulb. So in other words, if I'm on the East Coast of the United States, I could illuminate a light bulb on the West Coast of the United States.
Right.
All by virtue of having a photograph of that light bulb.
Well, that'd be pretty interesting.
Yeah, it would.
Very interesting. Earlier in the show, we had Sarah Nash on, and we were talking about EMFs and the impact that EMFs have on people. And her position was that we have to somehow integrate them and mutate them, or mutate as a result of them. And I wanted to just get your kind of scientific opinion on EMF, and how does the scalar energy either work or not work, mitigate, transmutate, whatever, with the EMFs?
I have, by way of experience, treated people with scalar energy, and I believe that this energy is benign, and secondly, it will serve to correct the chakras of the body. Mm-hmm. Now, with electromagnetic background radiation, it's been purported that that type of presence, that electromagnetic energy will perhaps unbalance, will serve to confuse our chakras. I believe scalar energy will do just the opposite. I believe scalar energy will balance the chakras, will balance the body, and essentially will be at least serve to palliate the deleterious effect of EMFs.
So scalar can mitigate EMF, then, is what you're saying?
Exactly.
Interesting. So, Tom, what is the difference between scalar energy and zero-point energy? Are they the same, or can you break that down?
I believe they're the same. Yes, I believe they're synonymous, Robert. I believe there's two energies in the universe: electromagnetic energy and scalar energy. Now, scalar energy has a number of names: zero-point energy, Orgone energy, ether energy, etc. Prana.
Interesting. So there is a connection then between orgone and scalar. Am I right?
Yes, there is. I know that there's a number of orgone practitioners in this country and around the world, and I think invariably they're tapping into that to scalar energy. They're working with some harmonic of scalar energy.
Interesting stuff. Okay, let's do this. I'm going to open up the phone line here, 347-308-8995, 347-308-8995. And if you have any questions for Tom about scalar energy or scalar energy healing, this would be a good time to call in and ask him. And you can probably ask him directly about his program, or you can ask him about the energy in general. So this is the Q&A time, and you can have direct contact with Tom, 347-308-8995. One of the things that I've read about with inventors, Tom, is that invariably they wind up gaining the type of attention that perhaps they really don't want. This could come from somebody within the government or corporations or something along those lines, and invariably there's kind of a fork in the road moment in their lives when they have these kinds of confrontations or meetings. Have you had any kind of attention placed on your work that you haven't really felt comfortable with before?
None at all whatsoever. I've not had any confrontation to date.
Well, that's good. Do you think this is in part due to the fact that you seem to be and feel like a very spiritual person? Do you feel in some ways guided and protected in that way?
I do. I think God is protecting me, and I do recognize, Robert, there is a small minority out there, and that minority is a power minority. It is a very wealthy and powerful minority, and they would not want to see the benefit that scalar energy would bring to mankind. For selfish reasons, they will work against this.
Right.
I've not had to deal with that ilk, that type of that group yet. Do I forecast that in the future? Yes, I do.
Well, hopefully you'll have all the support you need by getting this out there as far and as wide as possible, because there seems to be this theory that the more popular you are or the more well-known you are, the safer you are to some extent, right? So
exactly. You have strength in numbers, and once the people see the benefit of this, Robert, then there will be, again, that groundswell of support that I'm looking for. I'm not doing this for myself. I'm doing this for mankind. And it has to be a global approach. It has to be a team effort. I welcome anybody who's serious to work with me, to help me. This has such great potential in store. It's just pregnant with opportunity for the world.
Okay, so let's fantasize a little bit here, Tom. So let's say this thing really starts taking off, perhaps more than you could handle. Would you have somebody become like a scalar practitioner so you could branch out and work with more people? I mean, how would that look?
I'm going to have to.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to. Let's use an analogy. Let's say I have the first computer in the world. Okay? Can I do all the computer work? No. I'm eventually going to have to teach this to many people.
Right.
And we're going to have to implement this throughout the world. I welcome that day. But, again, to date, I have not had anybody who's been serious enough to say, I'm willing to invest the time and make that.
Okay. Well, looks like we have a call that's just come in, wants to talk with you and find out more about your work. Let's bring them on and let's hear what they have to say.
Okay.
Hello there.
Hello, Robert. This is Eric. Can you hear me?
Hey, Eric. What's going on, man?
Hey, I'm glad you can hear me this time. You couldn't hear me in the last show. But
Yeah.
I wanted to ask your guest whether or not he might have ever contacted someone by the name of Patrick Flanagan, who has claimed that he's the reincarnation of Nikola Tesla, or if he's ever heard of him.
Sure, I'll answer that. I've heard of Patrick Flanagan. I've never spoken to him. I've never corresponded with him. I recognize Patrick has done some really groundbreaking research with water in particular, and it's wonderful what he's done. But other than that, other than reading about him in a few scientific journals, no, I've not contacted him.
Okay. He claims he has memories of Tesla's life and his scientific work. So I just thought I'd float that out there in case that ever becomes relevant to you. But another thing I wanted to mention is how do you discern whether or not the type of energy you're dealing with, the scalar energy, is being a positive type of energy as opposed to a negative type of energy, which I know is the type that is used in scalar weapons?
Sure. Good point. When I work with scalar energy, I invariably work with photographs of physical forms. For instance, if I want to disassemble a pathogen, a germ, I take a photograph of a germ, a pathogen, and I insert that in my scalar instrument. So the scalar instrument is not working upon my human interpretation. The scalar instrument is picking up the energy of an unwanted foreign object, a pathogen, a germ, and is broadcasting the reverse phase angle of that pathogen in order to disassemble that offending agent. Now, to make a long story short, I use scalar energy to interpret a physical form and to either disassemble what is unwanted or offending, or to assemble what the body needs, what is essential to human health. So I hope that serves to clarify matters. I use scalar energy in that benign capacity, and I do not allow human interpretation to enter into the equation in order to treat somebody for some type of condition.
So Tom, let me just jump in here. Are you saying that scalar is neutral, and that what you have done is you've created kind of a protocol, I think, and I'm just filling the blanks. You've created a type of protocol for the positive application of it, and then on the disassembly part, you simply just incorporate the image of the pathogen, and then just let the scalar do its work. Is that close to what you do?
That's correct. That's accurate. And let me extend that a little bit further. What is scalar energy? Where does it originate from? Scalar energy is created by the sun of our solar system and the stars. We are surrounded by scalar energy. The universe is permeated with scalar energy, and it's benign. Now, if scalar energy was harmful, well, just by virtue of the fact that we're flooded with sunlight and starlight, we would feel the effects of it. It is a benign life force. It is helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Now, sadly, and I've heard the reports, I can't prove it, but sadly, there are people, perhaps governments or corporations, that are using scalar energy for nefarious intention, to hurt people or to use it as a weapon. That's a shame, because it's a gift from God, and it shouldn't be used to promote any type of terror or fear or intimidation.
Can I ask another question?
Uh-huh.
So if I extrapolate from what you said, does that mean that if you can isolate or identify any pathogen that's associated with the disease, that disease could be treated effectively with scalar energy?
Exactly. Thank you. I have found through my research and by way of experience, if I can obtain a photograph of a pathogen, I can effectively disassemble and neutralize that pathogen. It's profound.
How would you? Can you elaborate on how you get a reverse phase angle of a pathogen?
Yeah, now scalar energy is capable of in phase and out of phase capability. If I want to disassemble a pathogen, I would broadcast the reverse phase angle, thereby instructing the pathogen inside of a person to simply unbind. It's at the quantum level. It's an informational input. Now, to the contrary, let's say I wanted to assemble a vitamin or a mineral or a phytochemical inside the human body. I would broadcast the in-phase harmonic, the in-phase scalar energy harmonic, and instruct a vitamin or a mineral to assemble inside the human body.
It sounds like you could use one as a microscopic 3D printer of sorts.
Yes. Yeah, that's accurate.
Wow.
Good stuff.
Well, all right. Well, I appreciate you answering the questions. Thanks a lot.
By the way, I've hung out with Patrick Flanagan. A very interesting, strange night where he told a group of us how he'd been bitten by a rattlesnake and obviously lived to tell about it. So I'll tell you more about that one of these days offline, Eric. Are you there?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks a lot.
Okay, see you later.
All right, take care.
All right, so 347-308-8995, 347-308-8995. You can call in and ask Tom any questions you like. We have somebody on the 954 area code. Call back in if you want to chat with Tom. If not, then we'll probably wind up closing up shop here in the next few minutes or so and send Tom off on his way because I'm sure he has lots of scalar work to do on folks that are receiving treatments. So how many treatments have I received, Tom?
Robert, I've been treating you 6 days a week.
Wow.
So, exactly. So for the past 3 weeks, you've received probably close to 18, 20 treatments. And that's probably why you're so energized and you see this shift as you have reported. You see a difference in your general well-being.
I feel like I have more hair, too. Is that possible?
That's possible. I've had a few people report that scalar energy has served to regenerate their hair or has promoted new hair growth.
Yeah. Kind of interesting. All right, let's the 954 callers back on. Let's find out who they are and what they want to share or ask you. Thanks for calling back in.
Hello?
Yeah, hi.
Hi, it's Barbara. I have a question for Tom. I'm definitely going to be contacting you soon. I've actually been very sick for like 16 years with a compromised immune system and chronic fatigue syndrome, and I was wondering if you had any success in treating those particular things, for lack of a better word.
Yes, I have. Many people come to me with what perhaps they might describe it as mono or fatigue or chronic fatigue syndrome. By virtue of the fact, Barbara, that I can treat out so many different viruses and bacteria and fungi that have been shown to be responsible, or at least in some way associated with chronic fatigue syndrome.
Yes.
If I can eliminate those pathogens from the body, then the body can respond favorably. The immune system is once again enhanced and working properly. You don't have parasites eating your tissue or eating the food. Your body is returned to a more normal, healthful terrain whereby you don't have to compete with parasites in your body that are causing havoc.
Okay, and so then you kind of answered my second question was, that this scalar energy or this process that you use actually is like a diagnostic tool to identify whatever awry or in your system that doesn't belong there. Yes?
Not a problem. I've not been able to diagnose accurately with my scalar instrument. And the reason being, Barbara, there's no meter or gauge for scalar energy yet. I've not been able to develop it, nor have I ever come across anybody who has a numerical gauge for judging, for monitoring, for metering scalar energy. Hence, if I can't measure something, I really can't say yes or no as to the presence of a physical object.
Okay, so let's say, case in point, I send you my photo, and what do you do? Then what's the next step?
Good question. I treat, Barbara, for over 5,500 different species of pathogens.
Okay.
It's a standardized treatment.
Okay.
Now, although I can't diagnose what pathogen you have, I still treat, and again, as a standardized treatment, everybody for those 5,500 potential species of infection. And by broadcasting the reverse phase angle of those species, of those different types of pathogens, I've found that people respond favorably because I'm treating out some of those 5,500 germs. Meaning, let's say you came to me and you had 20 of those pathogens out of the 5,500 that I treat out. Well, then, indeed, scalar energy would unbind, would disassemble those 20 offending pathogens, what in turn returning your body to a more normal, healthful state.
Okay, I understand that. Now, my next question is, let's say, have you had really resistant cases of people, clients, where, you know, you've had to do rounds and rounds and rounds of this?
Yes. Some people require maybe 2 to 3 months of treatments because their infection is so deep-seated, and it's to the point where their body needs just so much help to recuperate and just to get back to normal. Some respond more favorably and quicker than others. Under different circumstances, that's to be expected.
All right, I understand that. And how would you determine that? Just by the patient's subjective, like saying, oh, I feel better, or I don't have swollen glands, or I'm not getting headaches anymore?
Exactly, by feedback. From the person that I'm treating, which is crucial. It's crucial.
Okay, and my last question, because I'm taking up all your time, is have you had instances where people have felt better and then they've kind of relapsed and gotten sick again and had to go through this process again? Like, let's say 6 months later or a year later, they're back where they started from.
Yes, that's possible. With reinfection. Why? Because we live in a diseased environment. Our world is polluted, let's face it.
I'm well aware of that.
and some people will come to me every 6 months and say, please sign me up again. Yes. I'd like to go through the process. So like, as if you would clean your house on a regular basis or wash your car, sometimes it's necessitated that people revisit me every 4, 5, 6 months.
Yeah, I can understand that. Do you put them on any sort of a diet?
No, I leave that up to
people.
people.
You just do a straight...
Exactly.
Okay.
I tell people to follow the advice of their physician or their acupuncturist or the medical community in general. I in no way want to conflict with their current regimen. I respect their input as well as the medical community's input. I simply want to add something new. I simply want to offer not a replacement for what they're doing, but essentially ancillary treatment.
I understand. Okay, well, you've been very helpful. I will be contacting you probably sometime next week when I get my little brain in order, and hopefully you will help me.
I'm sure we will. Thanks, Barbara.
Thank you so much, Tom, and thank you, Robert, also.
Thanks, Barbara. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, let's go to the 816 area code. Here we go.
Tom, this is Leo, and I'm wondering, maybe you mentioned it and I missed it, but do you do all this remotely, or would it be even more effective if we were where you were?
I always treat remotely. And to answer your question, it really doesn't matter if you're within my laboratory or if I'm treating you remotely by way of a photograph.
Okay.
I have found that a photograph will carry the scalar energy impulse just as efficiently as if you were sitting in my laboratory.
Okay. And then my son, he has autism, and we believe it to be from vaccine injury and heavy metals. I know you mentioned pathogens. Can you do anything for heavy metals with this type of treatment?
Yes. I have been treating out heavy metals, lead, mercury. It's an ongoing process. I have been successful in reducing that toxic level in a number of people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I was looking for. Would you recommend that would be something that they'd have to do, like a several-month treatment, or?
Good question. It depends on the circumstances. I know some people have come to me with lead poisoning, and it has taken a few months for me to effectively make an impression upon their health. It's a case-by-case basis, so it'd be hard to say.
And would that be something that would be kind of inclusive in the 5,000 number that you were giving, or would that be something you have to target specifically?
That would be inclusive in the current treatment that I'm performing.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you for answering my question. Thanks, Robert,
By
for
all
the
means.
time.
Thanks, Leo. Take care.
You too.
Okay. So, pretty good little Q&A session here, huh, Tom?
Very good. Great questions. Very insightful.
I have a very smart audience out there.
Yeah, really. They're very intelligent. They pick up on it. God bless them.
They're intelligent, and they're turned on, and they got great hearts. So, and it's also really good, to for the people that aren't necessarily calling in to be able to hear these questions. I'm sure a lot of them have very similar questions as well, especially the metal toxicity. How is there? Okay, so we've identified that there's pathogens that you can do the reverse phase angle on. How do you isolate the metal toxicity? That's an interesting question, I think.
Okay, great question. Again, I work with photographs. I have photographs of lead and mercury.
Interesting.
And
okay.
I insert those photographs into my scalar instrument. And I instruct the instrument to send the reverse phase angle of lead and mercury.
Mm-hmm.
And this will be a harmonic that once it's transmitted into the human body, will serve to disassemble those offending metals, those heavy metals.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay, well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. What do you think, Tom?
Oh, wonderful. Again, great audience. I love the give and take. Thank you, Robert.
Mm-hmm. Quick question. I just came up in the chat room how you treat 5,500 pathogens. You've got actual photos of 5,500 pathogens, right?
Exactly. I have a library of over 5,500 pathogens.
Mm-hmm.
I have a standardized treatment in which I treat people essentially every day for those 5,500 germs.
Amazing stuff. Okay, yeah. If you want to find out more about Tom, or you want to set up a session with him, cellfieldgo.com is the website, and he can answer more questions directly. Tom's really good with phone time. You can pick up the phone and dial him. The number's right on the website. And anything else you want to add there, Tom?
No, Robert, thank you. And again, for the listening audience, thank you for your input and your encouragement.
Okay, great. All right, so we'll catch you somewhere down the line. Maybe we'll have you back on in a few months and see where all this is taking you, and we'll kind of breakthroughs you've had and any other stories or anecdotes you want to share with us, okay?
I look forward to that. Thank you so much, Robert.
All right, thank you, Tom. That's Tom Paladino. He is the owner, operator, practitioner of selfyogo.com, a scalar energy healing technology based on the work of Nikola Tesla. Yeah, so one night, since I broached it, I used to go to this festival called Harmony Festival, and it was up in Northern California, and it was not Harmony. No, this was Earth Dance. I used to go to Harmony too. Earth Dance. Earth Dance was a festival that was started by Chris Decker, and Chris, very interesting guy, super interesting. He was in a group called Medicine Drum, and he was one of the early pioneers of the tribal trance scene in London. And Chris decided that he wanted to start a festival that had a global moment. And the global moment was the Prayer for Peace. And he synchronized these festivals all around the world to sort of take place simultaneously, and then have the Prayer for Peace being read at every single festival at the same time. And he had a number of concerts over the years up at Wavy Gravy's property, way up in Northern California. And I went to at least 3 or 4 of those, and they were pretty remarkable, actually. In fact, the mother of my son, she was pregnant at one of these festivals, and bathing and hanging out in the river there is like pretty much paradise, to be honest with you. Great music, super cool people, you know, the festival life. Anyway, one time I was there by myself, and I was running around with Lawrence Holtberg, who some of you are Facebook friends with. So Lawrence and I were hanging out, and we were just stumbling around and wound up in a trailer with Patrick Flanagan and his crew. That was totally insane. It was a crazy night. Patrick's a wild man. If you haven't found out who Patrick is or some of the stuff he's done, you should check him out. He's brilliant. He's done a lot of work around water. That's his big deal. But yeah, Patrick spent about half an hour telling us about how he was bit by a rattlesnake and lived to tell about it. So anyway, all right. I want to thank Sarah Nash, Cosmic Hooker, and Randi Didie, our Orgone artists, both of whom are currently in the Northwest, and also Tom Paladino from Florida for being a part of today's show. I'll be back on Monday with the mashup, and then we start it up all over again next week. Some interesting times ahead, folks. I think next week we're going to try to focus on what we call, or what's being called, the coastal events, which a lot of remote viewers and people like Cliff High have been talking about now for quite a while. And we're staring that down. It's at the end of the month, theoretically, around June 1st, the coastal events. We're going to start to spend some time on that and try to understand what that is, how real it might be, and what you can do about it if indeed we're about to stare this down. So stay tuned in the days and the weeks to come. This is Robert Phoenix. You've been listening to the Friday FARcast. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open what's possible. Here's Philip K. Dick telling you what it's all about. I'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend.
We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.